Mr. Barenboim, thank you so much for offering us this opportunity to conduct this interview. We are discussing with the students the topic of music and identity. And identity can be the source of comfort, it can provide a feeling of belonging, and it can even give direction or meaning to someone's life. However, on the other hand, identity can also be a source of frustration, can be a source of conflict, and can even be a reason why people go to war with one another. So my question to you is whether you think that music can offer a space or an opportunity to cherish or foster the aspects we value about identity, and whether music can be also a way to counteract the aspects we think are detrimental about identity.
Well, I think in today's world, it is not only possible, but I would say almost necessary to have multiple identities. Definitely, as a musician, you do that. I was born in Argentina. If my identity is Argentinian and I had to limit myself to performing only Argentinian music, I would be a tango pianist, and that's it. I think that a lot of music has a connection with the country, or at least the continent where it was written.
Yes.
And I think that you have to understand the German identity, the German language, if you want, if you play Beethoven or Brahms or Schumann or Wagner, whatever. It is, of course, less important after the middle of the 20th century, because shall we say, the local color of the music is not so evident. Although even a great musician like Pierre Boulez, who had lived in Germany and had a lot of absorbed a lot of influence from German music, there was something very French about his music too. That's what I mean by cultural identities. And
Yes.
we mustn't forget that the sound of the music is also linked to the language of the composer. German, for instance, has very heavy consonants, which Italian and French don't have. And if you don't really understand the specific identity of the music, which includes that, it is not obviously not exclusively that, but if you don't understand that, I think you have more difficulties with the understanding and then the performance of the music. What music can offer can be actually defined by each human being by himself. Music can offer comfort, we know that. Music was always played at funerals. Music can offer joy. Music was always played at weddings.
Yes.
Music can offer pride. Music was played at important ceremonies for whole countries, etc. But this is very much a subjective thing. I think music has the capacity to let itself be understood and interpreted by each human being. The proof of that is if you are, whenever we talk about music, we only talk actually about our reaction to it, not about the music itself. You listen to performance of the Mozart G minor symphony, and you are in a turbulent mood or in a depressed mood or something, and the music will speak to you through that too, and you will hear the agitation of the music, the agitation already of the violas that start with ongoing rhythm. You listen to the same performance at the moment when you are um, in a better mood, shall we say, in a more positive mood, and you might feel that the music represents for you a moment another kind of emotion, but the music remains the same. So I think the identity of the performer and the identity of the listener is totally unimportant.
Okay, wonderful. I would like to continue this line of thought by zooming in on the WestEastern Divan Orchestra, an orchestra that you and the late Edward Said, a dear friend of yours and a great intellectual, have founded. I mean, to me, that orchestra is a wonderful example of how music can offer an opportunity and a space for identities that would in daily life conflict, still try to enter dialogue, or perhaps even try a form of reconciliation. My question to you is, what were your ideas and ideals when founding this orchestra, and do you think that these ideas have been realized nowadays?
Well, I must draw your attention to a fact which you know, that since it is an orchestra, it is a group of people who share the same passion.
Exactly.
And that is enormous. I don't think that you could transport this idea to a group of people who have different passions. Maybe the theater, I don't know, maybe literature, whatever else it may be. I think this is a very strong fact. And in the West Eastern Divan, there is total understanding and total commitment and unity of thought to the music.
Yes.
It does not mean that Israelis and Palestinians, because of that, can become friends. Sometimes they do, other times they don't. It's obvious that when a musician from Ramallah and a musician from Tel Aviv come, for the musician from Ramallah, the Israelis are monsters, and for the Israeli, the Palestinians are monsters, if you take it to an absolute extreme.
Yes.
By exercising a common passion, the opinion of the other, of course, changes, because you not only think and see what separates you from the other, but you see what you have in common with them.
Exactly.
And that is not, I would say, a musical thing as such. It is very strong in music because music is both very rational and very emotional. And therefore, and it expresses itself only through the phenomenon, a physical phenomenon, which we call sound.
Yes.
And this is what makes it possible. But the musicians of the West Eastern Divan will agree on Beethoven 150%, but they will not agree on the politics.
Sure.
The fact that they agree on Beethoven maybe makes them more willing to exchange opinions.
Yes.
And it teaches them also to have respect for the narration of the other without agreeing with it. When you hear, because I believe music is a school for life. You know, when you hear a Brahms symphony and the first oboe has the main theme, everybody else in the orchestra wishes him good, wishes that he plays it really in the most wonderful way.
Yes.
That lasts maybe for 8 bars. And then the main theme goes to the double basses.
Exactly.
And then this same oboist who was the center of attention, complete center of attention for these 8 parts, now has to play a secondary role and adjust himself to the double basses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very good school for social behavior.
Wonderful.
As I see, we cannot always have the upper word. We cannot always dictate. We have to always listen. Music has another unique advantage, is that the dialogue goes simultaneously. Look, now you and I are having a conversation. You talk to me and I listen. Then I talk to you and you listen to me. In music, we will be doing this simultaneously.
Yes.
And this is the great power of the music.
Wonderful. One sentence you just said triggered me, which was this music as the school of life, because yesterday I was reading a book, Parallels and Paradoxes, which contains discussions between you and the late Edward Said. And there's this remarkable phrase there, which is, music can be the best school for life and at the same time the most effective way to escape from it. So this sentence seems to have a wonderful paradox in it, and I was wondering what your ideas were behind this sentence.
The understanding is clear, you just mentioned it. The way of escape is, if somebody comes home after a long, rather unpleasant day of having gone to the dentist or to the tax inspector and I don't know what else, and comes home tired, exhausted, fed up and in a bad mood, and puts on a recording of a piece that he loves, he flies with the music, and he forgets his situation. This is the solace that it can bring. So it all depends on the attitude of the performer and the attitude of the listener.
Wonderful. Yes. I would like to go now back to 2001, an event which is now part of history, when you were leading the Berlin State Opera on tour in Israel, and you were going to perform the first act of Wagner's Walküre. The organization asked you to change, and you did accordingly. However, at the end of the performance, you turned to the audience and proposed to play another, I think, an extract from Tristan und Isolde. The majority of the audience, I think, enjoyed that beautifully performed performance. However, that event was also the source of great controversy. Now, my question to you is how you were able, first of all, to somehow reconcile Wagner's amazingly beautiful music on the one hand and his clear association or alleged association with Nazi Germany on the other. And my other question would be how you...
for interrupting you.
Yes, sorry.
Wagner had no idea of Nazi Germany.
I'm sorry, it might be...
No, I mean, one has to remember, in other words, the people in Israel who have a problem with Wagner are people who are influenced by the associations that were created by the Nazis between their policies and Wagner's music. Wagner died in 1883. You know, it's not right, and this is the whole problem in Israel, and this is unfortunately used by Israeli politics to make Wagner the predecessor of Nazi philosophy, which is, of course, complete nonsense. Wagner was a horrific anti-Semite. But being an anti-Semite was the normal thing for a European nationalist in the 19th century. There was no idea that Auschwitz would happen one day and that there would be a Holocaust. You cannot really put the two together. And the other point, which is important to remember, is that Wagner's music in itself is not anti-Semitic. If the content of the Wagner opera was anti-Semitic, I could not conduct it.
Sure.
being a Jew.
Yes.
So I think this is not a philosophy, but it is kind of about the how shall I say it, about yeah, insincerity of Israeli political thinking on this subject. You know, it was the Israel Festival who had invited me specifically
Yes.
to play the first act of the Wagner, as you mentioned.
Yes.
It was the same Israel Festival that asked me to change it because they were under pressure from the Ministry of Education
Yes.
that their subsidy would be eliminated if they allowed this to happen. So this has nothing to do with the thing itself, but with the association. And I believe that if people are Holocaust survivors and they don't feel, because of the associations that they were subjected to, they don't feel they want to hear the music, this has to be respected.
Yes.
But people who fortunately do not suffer from these associations should be allowed to listen to whatever they want.
Absolutely. And one view should not dominate the other in.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is why I would never, I still think that Wagner should be played in Israel because Wagner is a very important composer. Wagner is also historically a very important composer.
Yes.
Without Wagner, there would have been no Bruckner, no Mahler, no Schoenberg, etc. Therefore, it is important for anybody who lets music become part of his life. But I would never suggest that Wagner is played at a subscription concert.
Sure.
Where you buy a ticket for the whole season and suddenly you are confronted in one program, suddenly the work of Wagner. But if you have to go and buy a ticket, which was the case in this particular case, if you go and have to go to the box office and buy a ticket, then I don't see, if you don't want to go, you don't go, and that's it. But you should not have really the right to stop other people from doing it.
Exactly. Very clear. Thank you so much. My last question is about music education. You and your foundation are supporting a whole range of music education projects, mainly in the Middle East, but also in Europe. For example, in Berlin, the music kindergarten. Now, I visited the website and I saw a wonderful phrase about the guiding principle of this kindergarten, which stated that the guiding principle for the kindergarten is not music education, but education through music. Now, I was wondering why you make this distinction and why this distinction is, according to you, important.
Well, music education, I believe, should be part of the normal curriculum in school, at school, the way that you learn literature, biology, geography. I think you would be a more complete human being if you also had education in music. And this is my next fight.
So you're saying that
music bring music education to school.
Yes.
But in the kindergarten, it is to bring the children in contact with sound, in contact with music, in contact with feeling and thought.
Yes.
Through the music. And not to educate them that Mozart was a great composer of the 18th century and he wrote so many operas and so many symphonies and so many piano sonatas. You know, that's music education. But education through music means what can we learn from music? And that is very, very different and a very difficult subject. And to this day, I'm going to be 74 this year, and I started playing the piano when I was 5. So for 69 years, this problem has been bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not since I was 5, because I was too small for that, but
Yes.
as a very young person. How is it possible that there are monsters like Stalin
Yes.
and Hitler who killed millions of people and yet were able to be moved to tears by listening to a piece of music that they particularly love?
Yes.
It shows me that they obviously did not get the essence of the music, and that it was simply oral pleasure of listening to the sounds. But in the way I would like to think about music, that should not be possible. In other words, if you understand the logic of the music, if you understand how the so many elements that are part of music, they come together to become one, the oneness, then you should not be able to murder people.
Exactly.
But I don't have an answer for that. It has been bothering me for many years, and I don't have an answer.
I can
And
imagine. Yeah.
Wagner's grandson, Wolfgang Wagner, who ran the Bayreuth Festival for so many years, he showed me in the score the the place in Lohengrin in the third act where Hitler always had a tear in his eye because he was so moved by the music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how it is possible to be moved by music in that sense and not be moved by the fact that you are killing millions of people.
Yes, I agree. That remains one of the biggest mysteries, also
Yeah.
for me, for sure. Now, if I'm allowed a last question, because you triggered me.
Supposed to be the last question.
Yeah, okay, I can stop, but
No. Go ahead.
thank you so much. Because when you were answering the question on music and education, I seem to interpret from your answer that music is far more than a luxurious activity or just more than leisure. And in our day and age, it's quite in vogue to think of music only as a luxury, and first things first, such as during education, for example, math and learning the languages are somehow more important. How would you react to someone?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that languages are more important from a practical point of view. If you want
Yes.
to exercise a profession, then you need to learn languages. You need to learn English, like you and I have done. I'm sure English is not your mother tongue and is not mine. So, practically it's a different thing. And of course, there are so many things that are very important for the human being. I want to say more important, but yes, of course, more important than music. But music that is been reduced philosophically to being something of leisure and something of only of audible pleasure and nothing else, because there is no education. There is no music education.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be today a very well informed person, very cultured, know your Goethe, your Schopenhauer, your Baudelaire, your Shakespeare, and all that, and not know the difference between Bach and Boulez.
Mm-hmm.
Music is not a necessary ingredient of general culture. And this I would like somehow to change, because it has many ramifications. It then comes the question if a government is supposed to subsidize an orchestra, not to say an opera house, which is much more expensive,
Sure.
and the politician who decides that has no idea about music, has never had any music education, he will not see the importance of it.
Exactly. Thank you so much for these wonderful answers. Thank you once more, and all the best, and I would like already to wish you a happy birthday. So I'll probably be the first one to wish you a happy 74th
Thank you
birthday.
very much.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Barenboim.
All the best. Thank you very much.
Bye.